An absolutely gorgeous evening here at Wrigley Field, and we're set for Chicago Cubs baseball on WGN Sports. The Cubs go for a 5-game winning streak, and we welcome Cub fans from all over the country watching on WGN America, America's home for baseball. Great to have you with us. Jim DeShays, Len Casper. The Cubs go for the quick 2-game sweep over the Angels, and right now you'd have to say Alfonso Soriano's the hottest hitter on the planet.
Indeed, a lot of hitters contributing last night for the Cubs, but lately Alfonso Soriano has really been carrying this ball club over the last 11 ball games, batting .400, 8 home runs of the 15 he's hit all year. He's driven in 17, OPS nearing 1,500 over this stretch.
They've won 4 in a row. A win tonight would tie their longest win streak of the year. We know about the starting pitching. It's been there all year, JD, but you like the almost 6 runs per game.
Yeah, offensive bats have really shown life lately. They've won 4 of their last 5 series, 5 home runs last night. A lot of guys contributing.
Premium pitching matchup tonight. It'll be Cubs ace Jeff Samardzija and the number 2 starter for the Angels, lefty C.J. Wilson.
A couple good solid pitchers. C.J. Wilson, the left-hander, making his first ever start here at Wrigley Field. You see his numbers in interleague play. Jeff Samardzija against the American League this year, 2-0 in 3 starts with an ERA of 1.96.
Cubs surging as we near the All-Star break. The Angels, in spite of their loss yesterday, still have won 10 of their last 13. Last night, it was about the home run. The Cubs connected 5 times as they beat up the Angels 7-2. We'll have the second and final game of this series next. To you by Budweiser. A reminder from Budweiser, great times are waiting, designated driver. Honda. Visit your local Honda dealer or go to shophonda.com for current offers. And by AT&T. Find out what's possible with products and services from AT&T. Rethink possible. Chicago Cubs baseball in beautiful high definition on WGN TV is brought to you by Xfinity, your home for the most live sports.
Tonight's game is available in Spanish on your SAP audio setting, provided by WRTO La Tremenda, Chicago's Spanish language sports leader.
Well, for my money, this is as good as it gets. Warm temperatures, little breeze coming in off the lake. A perfect summer night for Cubs baseball. Let's get the umpires. Sam Holbrook at the plate. Andy Fletcher at first. Mike Winters is at second, and Joe West, the veteran crew chief, is at third. Right-hander Jeff Samardzija will face this Angels starting lineup. Eric Ibar doesn't walk a lot, hits for a high average. Mike Trout, arguably the best all-around player in the game today. Albert Pujols, another homer here at Wrigley last night. Hamilton's going to clean up. Alberto Callaspo's at third. Mark Trumbo is in right. Switch hitting Hank Conger gets a start behind the plate. A former Cub back here at Wrigley, Brendan Harris, in for Howie Kendrick, and C.J. Wilson, the pitcher, bats ninth.
Cubs defensively is brought to you by Toyota. Let's go places. Let's go to the outfield, where you'll find Soriano, Bourbon, and Sapelt. Cody Ransom at third tonight with Starlin Castro and Darwin Barney. Up the middle, Anthony Rizzo at first base. He made a real nice play last night. Castro made a heck of a play, too, in the hole. Wellington Castillo behind the dish for Jeff Samardzija. Jeff 5-8 with a 3.54 ERA. Got hit around pretty good last time out by the Pirates. Prior to that, though, he had really been pitching well. 18 starts. League hits .239 against him. Strikeout numbers really, really good. And this is his first ever start against the mighty Anaheim Angels of Los Angeles.
Guys in the bullpen are ready. Their handshakes out of the way. So the season series wraps up tonight. The Cubs have won 2 of the first 3. They split 2 in Anaheim back in June and won last night 7-2. There's a switch hitter, Eric Ibar.
Fastball command was the issue last time out. Well, every command of everything really was a problem for Jeff. He walked 5 in that start against Pittsburgh. Had a hard time keeping the ball down in the zone. Good start.
Strike one. 93 on the fastball from Samardzija. Inside corner that time. 10 degrees cooler at game time tonight than last night.
Yeah, this is perfect. This is a beautiful night for baseball.
Ibar, not a guy who walks much. His walk percentage 2.5%, way below league average. He's hitting .285 on the year. That's high, and it's 2-2 with Mike Trout on deck.
Sounds more like a 2-hole hitter, doesn't it, when you talk about those numbers? A guy who doesn't walk but hits for a high average. Type of guy you might be inclined to play hit and run with, as opposed to leading off an inning trying to work a walk. Of course, this is the only time in the game you know he's going to start an inning.
And that'll be a fair ball rolled through the bullpen. Dave Sapelt will pick it up. It's a standing double for Ibar after an 0-2 start in that sequence.
And that was the issue too with Jeff in that last start. He had a hard time putting away the Pirate hitters in that start. But this is not a bad pitch. This is just, I would argue, a bit of good fortune for Ibar, dropping the head on that pitch and ending up with a double. That ball was way down, way in. It's kind of pitch, as a pitcher, you want to look at him at second base and go, what are you doing swinging at that?
21-year-old Mike Trout will turn 22 next month. He's an all-star for the second straight year. He'll be in the American League starting lineup. 35 times he's had at least 2 hits in a game this season already. There are a million interesting notes on him. We'll only have time to get a few of them in tonight. But I think my favorite in the Angels game notes, he's the second youngest player in AL history with 10 homers and 20 steals before the All-Star break at 21 years and 342 days. You know who the youngest is?
Ken Griffey Jr.?
That's going to elude Ransom into the other bullpen, and the Angels grab an early lead. Not sure if Cody did get a glove on it or not. But back-to-back doubles to start this thing.
How about Mike Trout? Is he the answer to that question?
Mike Trout last year, the youngest to do that.
Yeah, he's a pretty special guy. They go double-double to start the ball game here, and I would argue not a bad pitch either this time by Samardzija. So Angels have spoiled a couple of pretty good pitches. Ball sharply hit. Ransom does get leather on it, can't corral it. Boos you hear are for Pujols. I think Ibar stumbled a little bit rounding third base. Maybe not.
I think there's a very decent chance that next year Trout will become the third youngest American League player to have 10 homers and 20 steals in the first half. Pujols hit a 2-run homer in the game last night. He homered a game winner against the Cubs in Anaheim, and now all of a sudden Trout gets third as that ball popped out of Castillo's mitt.
And Jeff Samardzija would love to take a mulligan and start all over. Coming off a tough outing, you're just hoping to have a nice clean first inning, get a little momentum going. Threw the wild pitch.
Yeah, I'm thinking Bob Rosenberg might change that to a passed ball. Foul tip.
I would argue pass ball. Well, I had a lot of movement.
Infield back with nobody out in the first inning. And a chopper foul. Nice barehanded pick by Dino Ebel, the Angels third base coach.
It's a great name, isn't it? Dino Ebel. You're no evil. Speak no evil.
Blocked by Castillo. It's now 2-2 on Pujols, who took the off day Monday and went back to St. Louis. He and a few of his teammates, including Mike Trout, attended the Pujols Family Foundation Celebrity Golf Classic. Matt Holliday now hosts it. So even though Pujols is no longer a Cardinal, they've continued that charity event, raised about $350,000. They provide assistance to children with Down syndrome, disabilities, or life-threatening illnesses, children in need in the Dominican Republic. Pujols didn't play. Trout did, by the way, played all 18 holes. I'm sure shot a good score, too.
Yeah, he probably.
He's probably good at everything.
Yeah, somebody probably, passed out and he brought him back and probably did everything.
Ball 4, Pujols is on. You can reach us via email, lenandjd@tribune.com. We're on Facebook and Twitter as well.
Here's where you just got to keep your wits about you as a pitcher. Just kind of not starting the way you had hoped. Just kind of take it pitch by pitch. Hamilton had a hitting streak stopped last night. He hit in 12 consecutive games prior to taking an 0 for last evening.
By the way, Trout's foursome won the tournament.
There you go.
It's not fair, Mike. I'll find something you're not good at. That's one of those things where you're a buddy and you go, hey, let's play ping pong. You ever played? No, I never have. You go, I got him. And then after about 3 games, he beats you 21-6.
Smashing the ball all over the place. Well, this guy here, Hamilton, he's a tremendously gifted athlete. Now, Chris Bosio going to come out of the dugout and see if they can regroup here after this rough start.
Well, now you're in damage control mode. You've given up 1. You've got 2 guys on with nobody out. You're just trying to not have this inning be the inning to determine who wins this game.
And not the kind of night where the ball is likely to be jumping out of here like it was last night.
So a hitter's count for Hamilton, and he drives this one out into deep right center for a 3-run homer. And it's 4-0. 4 batters, 4 runs.
So it doesn't matter what kind of night it is when a hitter like Hamilton ties into one. Well, now you go into compete mode. Things have not gone your way. You've given up 4. Start fresh, battle and hang in there. Try to pitch as many innings as possible. And give your team, and the Cubs have been swinging it well, so give them a chance to come back.
Alberto Callaspo, the third baseman, looks at a sinker for strike. Hamilton with his 13th.
Coming into this start, Jeff had only allowed 8 first-inning runs all year.
Up to left. This will be the first out. It's Soriano to squeeze. Yeah, I would say, a month, 6 weeks ago, the Cubs trailing 4-0 early, you'd have said that's pretty much lights out for an offense that rarely was getting to 4 or 5 runs, but lately, not so much. So this is the kind of night where you need your offense to put up some big numbers to get you back into the game.
Got 7 last night, 8 the night before against the Sox.
Slider on Mark Trumbo. He had a 2-homer game against the Cubs in Anaheim back on June 5th. 1 for 3 with a double and a walk last night.
Mental technique he does there, staring at the bat before he settles in.
Another ball crushed for a home run. 2 in the inning for the Angels. That's number 20 for Trumbo, and it's 5-0.
Well, this Angels club has been playing well lately as well. They had won 10 out of 12 prior to last night's game. Trying to go with a slider, maybe a splitter away, but it drifts right over the heart of the plate.
We talked about Trumbo last night. He kind of lurks in the weeds. He's not the first name you hear about when you consider this offense and all the firepower they have, but he's got 20 already.
When you think about the resumes of Pujols and Hamilton with the MVP awards, Trout, with all the wonderful things he's done his first 2 years. Trumbo is a very, very solid big league hitter. He was an all-star last year.
0-2 on the catcher, Hank Conger. Now 1-2. This is Samardzij's final start of the first half. Starting tonight, it'll be the last time through the rotation.
Four-game set with the Cardinals starts tomorrow, and then Cubs will enjoy a 4-day break before resuming play in Denver on Friday after the break.
Swing and a miss, strike 3. That's the second out. And it'll bring up a former Cub, Brendan Harris. Wasn't a Cub for long. 3 games in 2004 as he made his Major league debut. And then he was dealt a big 4-team trade. He ended up with the Expos. That was a deal that brought Nomar to the Cubs. He's bounced around a lot since. Bounces one to Starlin Castro, and the inning finally comes to an end. A couple of homers in the inning. Hamilton and Trumbo, 5-0 Angels. Let's go places, already trailing 5-0. Sapelt, Ransom, and Rizzo at the top. Soriano, Castro, Darwin Barney moving up to the 6th spot. He hit a home run last night. Castillo back in the lineup. Bourbon in center, and Samardzija, the pitcher, hitting 9th.
Here's how they set up defensively for Mike Scioscia's group tonight. He's got Hamilton, Trout, and Trumbo in the outfield. Diaspo, Ibar on the left side of the infield. Harris, a utility guy, can play all over the infield. He's even played a little outfield. Pujols over there at first base. Hank Conger is behind the plate for veteran left-hander C.J. Wilson. Wilson 8-6. ERA of 3.49 through 18 starts. He's won 4 out of his last 5. A loser last time out. Pitched pretty well, though, and he had won his 4 previous starts. As I mentioned in the open, this is his first ever start here at Wrigley Field. He has faced the Cubs before, just not here.
So Dave Sapelt, who had a career-high 4 hits on Monday on the south side against the White Sox. So who's the big Ranger free agent the Angels are going to sign this offseason?
Yeah, I don't know.
They've done it now twice. Wilson and then Hamilton the last 2 off seasons. Ball 1 outside to Sapelt.
Improve your club and at the same time hope to inflict a little damage on the division rival.
For Wilson, it was 5 years, $77.5 million.
Former closer turned starter.
There's a base hit for Sapelt. So in your experience pitching on the road, your team gives you a huge lead before you ever throw a pitch. Does that creep into your mindset at all early in a game?
No, I don't think so. I think you've got to guard against that. The mentality, hey, I've got a big lead, I can just throw it in there. That's nonsense. You can't afford to pitch that way. Hitters will just jump all over you. You have to kind of still execute your game plan. I think you have to be a little more willing at the end of the day when you've got a big lead. If you fall behind a hitter, maybe to be more willing to catch the fat part of the plate.
Ransom out in the deep center, but Trout will make the catch about 15 feet in front of that 400 marker.
No, I think the mindset of most starting pitchers when given a 5-run lead in the first inning is, I just won a ball game. Now it's my job to go out there and pitch as deep into this game as possible. It's kind of embarrassing if the manager has to yank you after 5 innings when the team scored 5, in the first. If you let the other team creep back in and you limp off with a 5-4 lead, you shouldn't feel like you did your job.
Rizzo homered last night. He leads all major league players with 20 interleague RBIs. 20 of his 50 this year have come against the American League, and the Cubs have won 13 of their 19 games versus the AL, which is basically the West plus the White Sox.
Lost 2 out of 3 to the A's, but won every other series, right? No, split in Anaheim.
(3-0).
Wilson, a guy, if you're patient, typically throws a lot of pitches. Look, a lot of deep counts. Pitch count can be an issue with him. Got a lot of weapons: fastball, slider, cut fastball, curveball, and a changeup.
Now he averages almost 109 pitches per start, second most in the majors on average.
Well, looks like the game plan is to stay away from Rizzo.
He'll check on Chappelle. Pop foul into the upper deck, and it's 3-2.
Anthony hitting just .222 against lefties. Early on, he was really doing a nice job against left-handed pitchers. He's still hung in there. He's managed to hit 6 home runs against southpaws.
So he's hanging in there against lefties. That's a good development.
Swaim talking about Rizzo after last night's game. Anthony hit a home run his first at bat. He and Soriano went back to back, and Swaim said after that Anthony got a little big with his swing. That he became kind of home run conscious. That wind blowing out last night. Typically, that's not the case for him against lefties. He's willing to shorten up, try to hit a line drive somewhere.
Battle mode here. 3-2 with Chappelle at first and 1 out. If you like red, that's your uniform. Not only is the uni red, but so are the numerals and that angel script.
The glove. Sporting a red glove tonight.
Gets under this one out into left center. Hamilton for out number 2.
Left fielder number 12, Alfonso Soriano.
What a stretch for Soriano. The last time he had 8 homers during an 11-game stretch, it was 10 years ago, 03 with the Yankees. He was just 27 then, in the prime of his career. Now he's 37, but bat speed has been off the charts.
Last night, he hit 2. He got Joe Blanton in the first inning. And then they try to sneak some cheese by him upstairs, and the way he's swinging it, it's a bit of a gamble.
And it's only July 10th. He has 6 home runs. He and Adrian Beltre. lead the majors in July homers, so off to a pretty good start in terms of player of the month if he can keep it up. Swing and a miss. 1-2. I would imagine the attack against Soriano right now is to really mess with that bat speed because he's catching up to fastballs.
Right, yeah, minimize the amount of time you spend in the strike zone, and certainly with the fastball.
That's probably part of the plan too. Usually is against a hot hitter, make him uncomfortable.
Sometimes you can tell when a hitter's going good just by the way he takes pitches.
Swung on and missed, so this time Wilson wins the battle. Cubs strand one and trail big early.
Cub fans, if you want to manage the game along with Dale Swaim, log on to WGNTV.com right now. Click on the WGN Sports Game Zone banner. Connect to all the up-to-the-minute stats and information while you're watching at home. Game Zone is sponsored by The Great Escape. Pools, patio sets, play sets, hot tubs, more.
Samardzija trying to settle in here after a rough 5-run first. Quickly 0-2 on C.J. Wilson. You may remember his one career hit. He found Towles Hill on a triple against the Astros back in 2011.
I don't remember that. Probably wasn't paying attention. He's a good athlete, though.
Swings and misses. Second strikeout for Samardzija.
Suspect if he were in the National League, got a fair number of ABs, he'd be a guy who could handle the bat a little bit.
Now Ibar hit a pitch out of the strike zone down the right field line to start that big first inning. So we went through Wilson's mindset with a big early lead. What about Samardzija here after that inning that you try to forget, but it can't be easy to?
No, and that's the challenge. I talked about Wilson. His mindset is, I'm a winning pitcher now. I've got to take this thing as deep as possible. If you're Jeff, you think you can't be. I've been beaten. You've got to think, I just got to battle. I got to post a bunch of zeros. I can't afford to give up any more. String some zeros and see what my guys can do. And if you're able to do that, even if you ultimately lose, at least you could take some solace in the fact that you hung in there. It's all about competing.
Fredo Griffin down at first decided not to stick his hand in front of that ball.
Protecting his fielding percentage.
You want the money or the ball? I think I'll have both. We'll go 3-1. Swing for the fences with the new Home Run Derby mobile game from MLB.com, which includes all 24 Home Run Derby competitors from 2010 through 2012. Available on iPhone and iPad. Download MLB.com's Home Run Derby game for free today. Trout with an RBI double and a run in the first. Drafted in 09, high school from Millville, New Jersey. Line shot deep center, off the wall. Trout's got a couple of doubles.
He is a specimen, boy. He is strong and he can run too.
At 27 doubles last year, he now has 29 this year. Strike on Big Albert. .489 career home runs for Pujols inside.
Pujols 5 out of 12 with a couple of home runs against Samardzija coming into play tonight. Look at the Hall of Fame numbers that he has put up.
This is foul to make it 1-2.
And that's the book on him now is that he's not getting to good fastballs inside. It used to be that was kind of a no-go zone for pitchers against Pujols. He's so strong and so quick in there. I mean, you didn't eliminate it completely, but now they're kind of pounding him in there. Splitter down, beats it into the ground.
Two and two. To fill it up, 3-2. Hamilton, who homered in the opening inning, is on deck. He'll come up with two men on again. Pujols has walked both times.
Yeah, further proof that the whole idea of lineup protection is a bit overrated. The theory being with a dangerous hitter like Hamilton on deck, Pujols would get something to hit there on 3-2. hitters like Trout, Pujols when he's right, Hamilton when he's swinging it well. You don't ever really want to challenge those guys. Trying to make quality pitches throughout, regardless of the situation. Don't really want to give in.
He got 5 years this past winter, under $25 million. Swing and a miss, 0-2. And a great 5-year tenure in Texas, included an MVP season, an All-Star nod each year. The ending, though, did not go well. That big error in the final game of the regular season as the A's swept the Rangers to steal the division. Had an 0-for-4 in the Rangers wild card game loss. Yes, it may be surprising for some people to hear this. JD hit 43 home runs last year, knocked in 128, but everybody remembers the end.
Yeah, he was in a terrible funk and swinging and missing and everything. He said it many times. It's, what have you done for me lately?
Third strikeout for Samardzija. Inning is over. Angels strand 2 but lead 5-0. Cub fans, make sure you check out Len and JD's baseball blog at WGNTV.com. Sponsored by Jeff Vukovich, your nationwide insurance agent. Serving the area for 34 years. To join the nation, contact Jeff at jeffbook.com. Nationwide is on your side. I have a post on the Cubs in the trade market as we near the All-Star break. Make sure you check it out at WGNTV.com. 5-zip Angels. They got all their runs in the first. Starlin Castro hitting 5th in the Cubs order tonight, coming off one of his better games of the year. He homered, he walked, made a lot of fairly routine plays defensively, also made a really nice backhanded play to get Albert Pujols. It just seemed to be in a good rhythm all the way around. That has eluded him at times, particularly on the defensive end this season.
Matter of maintaining that good solid approach throughout, both at the plate and in the field.
Wilson coming back on a 2-1, and it's bounced foul. After this one, the Angels will fly to Seattle. They'll be off tomorrow, and they'll finish up the first half against the Mariners. The Cubs will be playing tomorrow night as they'll welcome in the Cardinals. There's Mike Scioscia, former Dodger catcher. Fought a lot of games here at Wrigley Field back in the 80s. Loves coming to this ballpark. The Angels don't do it much. Last time they were here, 2010, and it'll probably be another 3 years at least before they're back, barring a postseason matchup. Mark Trumbo in right for out number 1, and let's step aside and see what's coming up on WGN. Darwin Barney hitting 6th for the first time this season. This might be one of the reasons why he's moved up.
That was number 5 now. Why not move him up? How's he done against lefties? 257. 329 on base, 432 slugging. The numbers against southpaws far better than what he's done against right-handed pitching.
Hooked foul out of play. You see his OPS 200 points better against lefties than righties. Bounces that one off his front foot.
And I'm guessing that's better than league average against lefties. Clearly well below league average against righties.
Wilson's 1-2 on the outside corner, right where Conger wanted it. For his second strikeout, and he's retired 5 straight since the Sapelt leadoff single in the first.
And Darwin thought this ball was off the plate. Let's take a look. He was right. But Conger's set up out there helps influence the umpire.
Castillo was supposed to DH Monday at the White Sox, then got pretty dehydrated, was not feeling well, scratched from the lineup, sat out again last night, but back in there this evening. And it's 1-1. May be wondering, what did C.J. Wilson decide to do with all that money, with that big contract he signed? 5 years, $77.5 million. Well, he bought an auto dealership in the Chicago area. Yes, he owns C.J. Wilson Mazda, which makes sense. That's his name. Loves cars, loves racing cars. He owns a professional racing team as well. Likes to rock out on his guitar. Got a lot of hobbies outside of baseball. We had a chance to get over to the dealership yesterday for the game. Countryside.
Who says that these guys don't have off-season jobs? But they make so much money now they don't need off-season jobs.
I don't think he needs it. I think he likes it. Castillo
right now
takes a called third, and Wilson cruising with an early 5-0 lead.
today we want to recognize Gary Lang Chevrolet for their support of the Johnsburg Boys Baseball League. Gary Lang Chevrolet and your Chicagoland and Northwest Indiana dealers are supporting over 30,000 young ball players in their communities through the Chevy Youth Baseball Program. Since 2010, the Chicago area Chevy dealers have been providing these local youth leagues, equipment kits, instructional clinics, and much needed financial support. Chevy is truly the official vehicle of baseball.
1-0 on Alberto Callaspo, 5-0 Angels as we start the third.
That's artsy.
So I'm wondering if you can break down some mechanics here.
All right.
What do you see?
Stay back. Nice. I like it. Good follow through. Stays tall.
Nice play that time by Alfredo Griffin.
Alfredo Griffin, a nice long career. Did a lot of good things up in Toronto with the Jays.
Lifted to center, Bourbon makes a catch. Alfredo Griffin was a very good base runner. He once scored from second on a ground ball to second. Three World Series ring. One with the Dodgers, two with the Blue Jays. 18 seasons as a switch hitting shortstop. Trumbo has homered 3 times against the Cubs this season, including in the first inning. Well, can the Angels get back in it? That's the question. They are 3 games under 500 currently. Less than half the season to play.
They've been on a nice roll, but they haven't gained a lot of ground.
Well, they're basically 7 out of the wild card with several teams ahead of them. And 10 back in the division. 2-team race at the moment. Rangers trailing the A's by a half a game.
Yeah, that's their problem. They have 2 teams ahead of them and 2 good teams. It's one thing if you're in a mediocre division and you got off to a bad start and you start to find your game. Exactly.
2 down. Don't miss the Cubs as they host the Cardinals tomorrow, July 11th, a 7:05 first pitch. The first 10,000 fans will get a Cubs tote bag, compliments of the private bank. For more information or to purchase tickets, visit Cubs.com. Now the Dodgers are 2.5 out in playing the team they're trailing, the Diamondbacks.
According to coolstandings.com, the Angels have a 10% chance of making the postseason. And that's a website, and I'm not sure exactly what their formula is, but they look at run differential and division they're in. I'm not sure all the parameters. The Cubs have a 6.8% chance of making the playoffs.
Yeah, the Cubs, it was 3%, I think, before this 4-game winning streak. Shallow left. Who's going to get it? Castro will. The basket grab with his back to home plate. Well, you might be onto something, JD. Here we go. Young Jeff Samardzija there on the left.
Get that ball down, son.
Time now for our AT&T Uverse replays. Here's Mike Trout last year against the Baltimore Orioles in Baltimore. One of the best home run saving catches you'll see. He was pretty pumped up.
Yeah, just outstanding. Look how high he was.
And then his teammate, Peter Borges, who's currently on the DL, also in Baltimore, trying to one-up him.
Angels in the outfield.
Find out what's possible with products and services from AT&T. Rethink possible.
Because not all those home run saving catches are created equal.
Well, how about the Carlos Gomez catch the other night against Joey Votto? That won the game.
Well, yeah, the timing of it, but sometimes a guy just goes back to the wall. He stands there and he jumps, and I don't think we'd get overly excited if there was no wall there. But a play like Trout made, the one that Burgess made, those really get your attention.
One and two on Bourbon, the Cubs' 8 hitter. So Marge is on deck. 2 and 2. Samardzija found out in the first inning can't be your night every night. Cliff Lee learning that tonight as well. He had given up 9 homers in his first 135 2/3 innings this year, but tonight gave up 4 in a span of 8 batters.
And they're done that.
Trails the Nationals 4-0. Swing and a miss, strike 3.
Must be contagious. Matt Cain didn't make it out of the first inning tonight. I believe I read for the first time in his career. Against the Mets. The red hot Mets.
Cubs have a better record than both those teams. Actually, the Mets winning now 40-48, matching the Cubs. The Giants with the loss, they're in last. In the National League West, they're 40-50. The Mets with their first sweep in San Francisco since 1994 at Candlestick Park. Trout gets Samardzija, who hit it hard but lines out.
Matt Cain tonight 2/3 of an inning. 2 hits, 3 runs, 3 walks through 36 pitches. Zach Wheeler got the win for the Mets. 3-1. Now is Wheeler with a 3.54. He pitched 7 innings of 1-run ball. He was the guy who used to be the big prospect for the Giants.
Yeah, beat his former organization.
Carlos Beltran deal, I believe. Beltran to the Giants. Wheeler, who was then the top pitching prospect of the Giants, to the Mets. Jacked up in New York about that Harvey Wheeler tandem going forward.
Sapelt has the only Cub hit, leadoff single in the first inning. 8 in a row have been retired since by Wilson.
Wilson normally a guy who gets a fair number of outs on the ground, but he's playing more of a power game tonight. Fly balls and punch outs.
Very late emergency hack there by Sapelt. It's not a swing to put a ball in play. Its intent is just to give yourself one more pitch at least. With that pitch, he grounds out to Brendan Harris. So Wilson has utilized that early lead and has gotten very comfortable in his Wrigley debut. 5-0. 5-0. The Angels trying to earn their split. This 2-game series. What a weird home and home. 2 in Anaheim, 2 here in Chicago. Brendan Harris in for Howie Kendrick, who has gone 7 for 12 against the Cubs this season, but Kendrick in a little bit of a slump lately, so he gets tonight off. So on the field is this way.
They're drawn to the light. Can't help themselves.
Breaking ball strike on Harris. Broken bat, 1 hopper to Barney. And Harris is retired.
Cubs baseball is brought to you by Bud Light Music First. It's the sound of history being made. Here we go.
Wilson with 1 out. Fastball strike. Barney will just flip it to Rizzo from the leather.
Look at Wilson. Wilson get down the line. Kind of like Travis Wood. Playing the whole game and on the ops for the flip. You get there, man.
Ibar for the 3rd time. Outside for a ball. Baseball is a team sport, but it's also a lot about the individuals. They all do what they're supposed to do. You'll help your team win some games. Now, in the case of Samardzija tonight, there actually is a selfish reason for him to continue to pitch and try to pitch well. His ERA. That first inning was a killer, 5 runs, but he can get out there and get 6 or maybe even 7 in tonight. At least he can try to save this performance on a personal level, and that'll help the team too. Sometimes it's okay to be selfish in that regard.
Oh yeah. This game rewards selfishness, probably like none other. You know, you don't have to pass the ball to anybody in baseball. You don't have to block for anybody. There's been a lot of great selfish players. The team concept in baseball is more about everybody has a responsibility to take care of their little piece of the puzzle. You got your job to do. You got to go out and do it. It doesn't depend too much on getting help from your teammates.
Ibar bounces to Ransom. Back-to-back 1-2-3s for Samardzija, but still trailing by a bunch.
Welcome back. Wrigleyville Rooftops has premier seating for up to 200 guests for corporate gatherings, family reunions, and bachelor or bachelorette parties. Individual and group tickets are available for all games. For more details, go to WrigleyvilleRooftops.com or call 773-248-ROOF. Beautiful night tonight. No matter where you are in the ballpark or outside the ballpark.
Still a long way to go if the Cubs can put up a couple of crooked numbers. And Samardzija can continue to pitch the way he has the last couple of innings. Get back into this game, but C.J. Wilson so far has given them no indication they can do that. He's faced 10 batters and retired 9 of them in the first 3 innings. Cody Ransom takes a strike.
Been really good pounding away at that spot right there, down and away to the right-handed hitters, and command that part of the plate. Catcher back there, Conger, I like him too. He's real quiet behind the plate. He has good hands, but good soft hands receiving the ball.
One curve misses low. Ransom gets his 25th start of the year at third. Hard to catch a pop-up with the sun in your eyes if you don't have the shades actually on. But I guess because it's after 8 o'clock, he doesn't have to worry about it.
I know that program. You got to change. You got to go from the regular to the sun, back to the regular. You should get some photo grays.
Three and two. How long have you been wearing glasses?
Since the 9th grade.
Really?
Yeah. Wore the Rambus glasses in high school basketball. I rocked those photo grays back in the day.
Contacts?
Ran with contacts for a while. And then they just started to bug me a lot, so I just kind of scrapped them all together. Because what happens as you get older, the contacts, then you need to wear reading glasses over the contacts. And that's when I said,
Kind of defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
I had LASIK about 14 years ago.
I probably should have done that back in the day.
Greg Maddux did it.
Over the All-Star break, did he not?
I think so. It was good enough for him. It's good enough for me. That's a fair ball for Ransom down into the corner. Well, the Cubs, that's their 291st extra base hit. They lead the National League in that category.
It goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. You got to cash this. Got to cash this in.
Well, C.J. Wilson owns a Mazda dealership, and here's the Mazda Drive to Victory as the Cubs try to come back. Drive to Victory brought to you by your local Chicagoland and Northwest Indiana Mazda dealers. Yeah, C.J., you sponsored that double. Nice going.
I wonder if he's offering any deals while he's in town. A-Rod's in the car business too.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Alex Rodriguez dealerships around the country.
Rizzo fouls. On the strike the count.
John Elway, I think. He had a bunch of
Dan Marino.
dealerships.
I think his dealership is Marooney. It's like two names put together. kick, the 1-1. Too tight, 2-1. Tigers getting a little revenge on the White Sox, who beat them last night 7-3 Detroit in the bottom of the 6th. How about Alex Rios last night? He went 6 for 6, tied the American League record for hits in a 9-inning game.
4 for 4 off of Justin Verlander.
Pitcher's strike, it's full. Marlins beat the Braves 6-2 to end a 5-game skid. So last place beat first place, and the Marlins now within 18.5 in the East. To play today, the Braves with the biggest division lead in baseball, 6 games over the Nationals. Ground ball through for a base hit, and the Cubs will get on the board. Rizzo with his 21st interleague RBI. It's 5-1.
Down big early, got to take advantage of these run scoring opportunities. Ransom leadoff double, and Rizzo good tough at bat. Great approach off the lefty. Slider outer third, he just stays on it, pings it right back up the middle.
There's Soriano. .387 career homers, 58th on the all-time list. How about this? This is a group of guys with 375 homers and 275 stolen bases. Barry Bonds, Willie Mays, Alex Rodriguez, Andre Dawson, and by the way, happy birthday to the Hawk, 59 years old today, and Alfonso Soriano. That's a pretty impressive list. Power and speed.
Yep. Power and speed, durability. And to be able to sustain it for a long time. Here he is in his late 30s, still playing with a lot of energy. The bat speed is still there for him. Let's not watch Soriano play. He reminded me of Henry Aaron physically. Aaron, not a big hulking guy, but strong hands, forearms, wrists. Soriano swings that big bat.
Dale was asked about what it is about Soriano when he's in this kind of stretch, and he said his hands are fast. You don't have to speed things up. It's just there. He has struck out both times tonight. It's the first out of the 4th.
Yeah, and I was looking at his game by games during the stretch. You know, he's still striking out. It's not like you're saying, well, his pitch selection is that much better. It's just he's been when they leave pitches in the strike zone for him, he's been quick enough to get to the fastballs, and he's taking advantage of some bad breaking balls. I mean, that's a tough pitch for any hitter, and Soriano's never been a real disciplined hitter where he's going to lay off those borderline pitches.
Brings up Castro. Rizzo at first, 1 out. Conger with a nice knockdown.
Hitters talk about trusting their hands. They trust that they're going to be able to get to that good fastball, so they don't have to cheat. That's when they start to lose trust in their hands. They start early, and then they're fooled by the off-speed stuff.
The homer for Castro last night was his first at Wrigley since April 30th. 5th of the season overall, and he was able to hold.
Yeah, he hit one in Seattle on the road trip. That was his first period since the end of April.
Got the break. Fouled off.
We're calling pitches from the dugout.
I believe that was a bench coach, Rob Pujols.
Maybe just throw over, pitch out. I'm guessing he's not calling pitches. Never see he was doing on 2-2-3. Normally you see what he just did there, the series of taps on the face and the head.
I got a good note on Pujols. 1,720 career plate appearances. Want to take a guess how many walks?
I'm going to guess not many.
25. That's about 3 seasons worth of plate appearances. On the ground, Harris, high bar, Pujols. And the inning is over. Double play ball. They get one, 5-1. As we check out our Xfinity home from Comcast, you'd have to say Albert Pujols is this generation's Mike Schmidt in terms of Cub killers at Wrigley Field. Look at Schmidt, 50 homers and 138 career games here. Get peace of mind with Xfinity Home, the total home security and home control solution that keeps you more connected to what matters most. I think he hit half of them in one game.
(22-20), that's something like that game.
You get a couple of ridiculous performances here, like in the mid to late 70s.
That's third baseman ever, maybe, huh? Mike Schmidt, considered by many.
Yeah, to say so. Whole package. So according to Baseball Reference, obviously Schmidt hit his most homers at the Vet, 265. He hit 50 here. After that, Riverfront, 29. But it wasn't just that he played against the Cubs a lot. He hit a ton of them in this ballpark. Trout, they better hurry. Ransom will barehand, no chance. Mike Trout. So he's 3 for 3. And let's hear from Albert Pujols on his days as a Cardinal coming to Wrigley Field.
I think I don't remember when it was. Was it maybe 06 that we clinched here? You know, maybe that celebration was good to do it here. You know, and try to do that rival that we had against Chicago that year, and I think it was a great celebration here to clinch to make it to the playoff.
So Pujols, again, we won't see him here much in the years to come. So it was April 17th, 1976. Mike Schmidt hit 4 here at Wrigley. 2 off Rick Russell, 1 off Mike Garman, 1 off Paul Russell, and then he'd homer the following day off Paul Russell. 5 homers in 2 days. That was an 18-16 game. Here's one of his home runs.
He could hammer that high fastball.
Like it was off Bruce Sutter at the Vet.
Pretty sure I gave up the last home run he ever hit. 88, 89, whenever he retired. Check out his home run log.
I am right
Scroll
now.
down to the bottom.
I got a lot of scrolling to do. He hit 548, and the final one was off you. Yes, May 2nd, 1989. There was a runner at second. The bottom of the first. Remember the count?
I don't know. Base open. I probably should have walked him.
It was a 2-2 count, and it was on the 6th pitch of the at-bat.
I probably hung him a changeup.
According to the notes, it said line drive to deep left field line. Well, you were in his book. That's okay.
That's it. Hey, I didn't make history. I'm just a footnote.
Trout steals second without a throw.
You know, if Trout's, and I don't want to get melodramatic here, but he's the kind of guy that parents are going to bring their kids to the ballpark and say, watch this guy. And you're going to thank me someday that I took you to the ballpark to watch this guy play. Because unless he gets hurt, he's going to be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, the skill set is pretty unique. I remember watching Miguel Cabrera 10 seasons ago when he started his career with the then Florida Marlins, and I thought, and he wasn't ever a base stealer, but just the offensive, the power, ability to hit for average. I thought the same thing. We're watching a Hall of Famer here.
And how at this high level, the highest level of the game, some guys still have the ability to stand out so far above the rest. I was talking with Mark Langston earlier today. Mark's doing radio now with the Angels, and he said, yeah, he's the best he's seen. The only guy comparable was Griffey Jr. Mark was still in Seattle when Jr. broke in.
Pujols, deep left center, gone. Unfortunately, right on cue. We're talking about what he's done in this ballpark over the years, and he does it again. For the 28th time in his 88th game here at venerable Wrigley Field, the 490th of his career.
Back here against a former rival, he's showing flashes of his old self. It's really been a struggle for him in Anaheim this year. He got off to a very slow start last year, but turned it around at some point in May. He got hot and ended up putting up very good numbers. A little sluggish start so far this year, but maybe big things to come for Pujols in the second half.
Okay, so I'm going to bring up the tough, but I think very interesting discussion. 7-1 Angels, still nobody out. Here's Hamilton. Who would you rather have for the long term, Mike Trout or Bryce Harper?
That's a great question.
Trout's a little older, about a year older.
I'm going to say Trout.
Why?
Don't know.
I would too.
Here's
I'll give you a reason. Go ahead. You go first.
Because of Harper running into the wall earlier this year, the reckless way he plays.
My only concern about Bryce Harper is that he's going to break some bones. Yeah. Maybe the other one, and I'd have to look up the splits, being a left-handed hitter, might struggle at times against lefties. But we are really nitpicking.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd take either. I'd let you have the first pick, and I'd take the guy you don't want.
Put pressure on whoever's got the first pick. Well, that's the beauty, you know, and you're talking about watching Trout. You get the same thing with Harper, and these guys are going to be in the league for a good long while.
Henry Rodriguez, a former Bryce Harper teammate, is up in the Cubs bullpen. Hamilton to right and deep, and gone. He's hit 2 tonight. The Angels have hit 4.
For the record, the wind is not blowing out tonight, is it? I mean, that's not my sense.
Nope. It is officially blowing in out of the northeast.
Wow. What a show.
Well, that wasn't a bad pitch.
No, I mean, that's, you know, and the tough part about this whole game for Samardzija, the ambush he took in the first inning, you know, he started pretty well. He was, you know, trying to get that fastball down. Ibar hit that ball well off the plate. And I say it time and time again, sometimes as a starting pitcher, you need a little good fortune to get out of that first before you can settle in. But, you know, I think his command tonight has been better by a wide margin than it was last time out. Angel hitters are just having a big night.
4 homers and 3 doubles. And it's now 3-0 on Callaspo. That is the Hamilton home run ball in the basket in right.
First time the Angels have gone back-to-back this year. That's surprising.
That is really surprising.
And that ball is going to tempt that little kid down there in right field for a long while. Not going to be able to take his eyes off of it.
1 away. Well, you brought it up. That's all I'm going to say, because I did not know that you gave up the last home run Mike Schmidt ever hit, and there it is.
It was a high intended to be fast ball.
Off the pole and left, so it almost drifted. Oh, it was Von Hayes.
On Purple Hayes.
Yeah, it was on base.
Yeah, and and then that was his last one, because you figured, wow, if I took this guy deep, pretty much reached the pinnacle of my sport. Yep. Yeah, he was tough. That was Ashby. He should have called the changeup. That was a bad call, Ash.
The production crew has been sitting on that video since the day you were hired. Finally, chance to use it.
You want some home run highlights off of me? You gotta build an extra room to store them all. Opie Taylor in the house tonight.
1-2 to Trumbo. So Trout, Pujols, and Hamilton, if you add it up, 6 hits, 3 homers, 2 doubles, 2 walks, 7 RBIs, 6 runs. Yikes.
Jeff had allowed only 10 home runs coming into this start.
Swing and a miss for strike 3. Splitter. Switch hitter Hank Conger. 12 career homers, all left-handed. Deep left center. It's going to rest right at the base of the wall for another double.
Wilmington Castillo casting his eyes towards the Cubs dugout to see if Dale Schwayme's going to come out, and the answer is yes. Back-to-back tough outings for Jeff Samardzija, not the way he wanted to head into the All-Star break.
8-1 Angels in the 5th, and we'll be right back. Now working.
How hard? Average velocity better than 97 miles an hour. That's average. 0-1, 327. 21 appearances. The bulk of that with the Washington Nationals. He's made 4 trips to the mound with the Cubs. It's been sporadic for him in terms of his usage.
Over on June 11th. He's been with the Cubs about a month. Led to the roster on June 14th. Facing Brendan Harris, runner at second, 2 outs, 3 runs in.
And one of those guys that when you're in a rebuilding phase and he comes across the waiver wire, you're intrigued. Hey, this guy's got a big arm. Give him a shot. We can do work with him a little bit. Maybe Chris Bosio can straighten out some things. You're always intrigued by a guy with this kind of an arm.
Harris, a 5th round pick of the Cubs in 01 out of William and Mary. And he looks at a pitch low at 98 miles an hour. He said 97 is the average for Rodriguez. It's his average, but it's well above average for everybody else.
Yeah.
Easy gas.
Also throws a slider and occasional changeup.
A rough one tonight, to say the least, for Samardzija. A little bad luck early, but he got hit hard.
It's the look, right? And that's the thing about a starting pitcher. You get out there every 5th day. We talk so much about the opportunity for position players and relief pitchers to redeem themselves, but for a starter, you got to wait till that 5th day, and now for Jeff, much longer than that with the All-Star break.
About 10 days, probably.
Staring off into the abyss there in the dugout, and that's just a bad feeling. You get all jacked up for that start. Coming off a tough one, he worked hard in between starts, make some adjustments. This game is not for the faint of heart. You got to be mentally tough to absorb some of the blows you take. Go back out there.
Shortest outing of the year for Samardzija. Season high in runs allowed 2. That's deep to left for Harris. Into the basket. The Cubs homered 5 times last night. The Angels have done that tonight. That's his 4th of the year.
There is no mercy rule in Major League Baseball. If there were, you might be thinking about throwing in the towel here. My goodness, what a display. 97 moving in on him. He's choked up a little bit. You can't afford to be long. You got to be quick. His path was quick. He joins the home run parade.
And another base hit, this time the pitcher Wilson. So Samardzija charged with 9 runs tonight. That ties his career high. Five-run first, 5-run 5th for the visitors. He was telling Anthony Rizzo to play behind Wilson in a 10-1 game. 1-2.
Good slider here from Henry.
Floated out toward left center, and it drops down. Wilson makes a turn on his way to third. Safe.
Safe, but a little reckless. Starting pitcher in a 10-1 ball game with 2 outs to force the action, go first to third, have to make a hard slide into third base. Talked about Wilson earlier in his athleticism. He's having fun playing the game. I'd imagine Mike Scioscia would have preferred that he drop anchor at second base.
Trout started the inning with a single. 10th batter of the 5th.
Trout and Bryce Harper will both start the All-Star game, becoming just the 3rd pair of players under the age of 22 to start the Midsummer Classic. The others you're wondering? Al Kaline, Frank Robinson in 1956. Eddie Matthews, Mickey Mantle in 1953.
(3-0).
Hall of Famers all.
Angels basically have had the best offense in baseball the last month, since June 8th, averaging 5.14 runs per game, leading the way, and they've put up 10 so far tonight. Bases loaded for Pujols. Now's a chance to homer twice in the same inning. He'll come up with the bases loaded, but first Chris Bosio out to the mound. Yeah, the thing about Trout is that not only does he have the skills of a 29-year-old right in the middle of his prime player, he's 21.
Yeah, 21 years of age.
There's nothing about him that says he's 21.
No.
You know?
No, and talking with people that are around him all the time, they say, you know, he just carries himself really well. He makes time for everybody. A very affable guy. And you know, instincts are off the charts. Plenty of young players come into the game and they have a great skill set, but they don't really kind of know how to play the game in terms of base running and decisions you make in the field.
I'm sure when he's 31, he'll take a look back at a photo of himself now and say, man, I look young. The birth certificate and the driver's license, they don't lie, but if you just watch this guy play, you'd never guess he's that young. He's got the neck of a linebacker, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
2-0. Rodriguez cannot find the strike zone all of a sudden.
So I'm guessing Chris Bosio may have said, hey, you need to throw more sliders. I think he was hoping he would find the strike zone with a couple of them. He could get over fastball.
Ball 4 to force in a run. It's 11-1.
It's kind of ironic because you and I were down on the field before the game chatting briefly with Dale. You pointed out that the Cubs' run differential had swung over to the positive side.
After last night,
yeah.
It was +1. Cubs have done very well in blowout type games. This has not occurred very often this season. So left-hander Brooks Raley will try to get that third out with the bases loaded. His season debut for the Cubs. Let's see what he did last year in his major league debut. Those games were all as a starter.
He was up earlier for a couple of days in June 12th and 13th, but did not get into a ball game. 6th round pick of the Cubs in 2009 out of Texas A&M University. 6-6, an ERA of 4.91. Down at Iowa, 16 starts and 1 appearance out of the pen.
Comes the 12th hitter of the inning, and it's Josh Hamilton with the bases loaded, 6 in for the Angels.
And Hamilton, you know, we talked about Soriano being a streaky hitter. Hamilton, very similar. He goes through some funks where he just swings and misses seemingly all the time. Then he gets locked in, gets on a roll, and just hammers the ball. Both Hamilton and Soriano among the leaders in baseball, swinging and missing. When they connect, good things happen.
Dave Chappelle makes a knee-high grab on the move. They leave him loaded, but they scored 6 times, and it's 11-1.
Let's take a look at the Cubs Ford upcoming schedule. Cardinals are in town for 4 games set. 7 o'clock tomorrow on CSN. We're here on WGN on Friday afternoon. Fox has got Saturday's game, and then Sunday night they finish off the first half.
11-1, all Angels tonight. You can see the flag. It says Cardinals. They're in first.
On top, they've won 4 in a row, while the Pirates have lost 4 in a row.
So the Pirates just getting underway. They were under a rain delay, and the Cardinals are trailing the Astros 3-1 in the bottom of the 5th. One to Barney, catches the outside corner. Wilson has been very sharp tonight. It's a kind of night where he probably didn't need all this run support, but he got it anyway. Barney pops into shallow right. It'll be the second baseman Harris for the catch.
Wilson's second year with the Angels, a 13-game winner last year. An all-star last year, and he was in 2011 as well.
And a nice note from Al Lardizabal from Chicago. Watches Cubs baseball all the time. I want to send out happy early birthday greetings to Vito Birdie from Westchester, Illinois. I got a note here. It is not related to the Cubs. It's more about players in general. It starts with Sirs. Why don't the Baseball Association of America make it a ruling for all players to have a real haircut? With the pay these guys get, it surely shouldn't be too much to ask. It's a bushy, stringy, sweaty mess. If they think their hair looks cool, they are nuts. From a few diehard Cub fans from Central Illinois. Take it under advisement.
Anthony tightened his up when the weather got hot.
The Baseball Association of America, we will send this note along to them.
Pass that along.
Yeah.
Well, boy, they wouldn't have liked the 70s. The little swinging A's teams. I don't think the Baseball Players Association would.
No, the Baseball Association of America.
Yeah, no, but I mean, if the Baseball Association of America came to the Players Association and said, we need to put in a restrictive hair policy here, probably wouldn't go over well in collective bargaining.
There's a bloop base hit for Julio Bourbon.
And we liked it.
Speaking of Harry, come out to Wrigley to watch the Cubs battle the division rival Cardinals this Saturday, July 13th at Wrigley Field. Game time 6:15. The first 10,000 fans receive a Harry Carey replica statue, compliments of Liberty Mutual. For more info or to purchase tickets, visit Cubs.com. Now, he had a great head of hair, depicted by that little squiggly thing at the top. Bourbon will take second without a throw. Now look at that hair.
That's how you learn how to draw a bird right there.
One on Rayleigh. One and two. Getting some photos down there at field level. Too many Angels celebrations, unfortunately, here early on. Rayleigh hits a ground ball to the shortstop, Ibar. Ibar won the Gold Glove 2 years ago. Makes that play flawlessly. Still 11-1 Angels. And all Angels so far tonight. Josh Hamilton's hit a couple. Albert Pujols has had a perfect night, a homer, 3 walks. Trumbo, Brendan Harris has also gone deep. Rough night for Jeff Samardzij's shortest outing of the season and tying his career high, allowing 9 runs. Your Chicagoland and Northwest Indiana Honda dealers as reliable as the cars themselves. Teospo, Trumbo, and Conger here in the 6th.
Brooks Rayleigh had been starting down at AAA, so he's stretched out, and that's his mission: get as many outs as possible and save the bullpen.
Yeah, we're at the point now where it's a little bit more quantity than quality. You always want quality. You don't want to kill your bullpen on a night like this. Found back.
And that's why even if Rayleigh gets knocked around, Dale Swain may leave him in there just to save the bullpen tough position to be in as a pitcher, but that's your job.
Base hit left field. Alberto Callaspo. So he gets in on the act. That's his first hit. And now everybody in the Angel lineup, including the pitcher, with at least one knock. Side for a ball on Trumbo. So we were talking about Joe West last night. Bruce Fleming, Bill Clem, the only two umpires in history to have a longer tenure. They both worked 37 years. Joe 35 and counting. Fly ball to center. Bourbon will make the catch. On this date in 1911, according to nationalpastime.com, Bill Clem stopped the Philly Cardinal game to have an unruly fan removed from the Baker Bowl, and it was believed to be the first time a paying customer had ever been asked to leave. At the time, what they normally did is have bodyguards after the game protect the umpires, because they figured ejecting fans would make the rest of them a little bit more rambunctious.
Yeah, it was, back in the day, it was a pretty rough game. Fights on the field, fights in the stands, heavy drinking and gambling.
Picked up by Ransom. They'll get one, and they'll get two, and go 5-4-3 on that same date. A player punched a home plate umpire. 1911. Yes. Colin Cowgill was with the Mets to start the season. Now with the Angels, he's playing right. He'll go into Albert Pujols' spot in the lineup. Trumbo will move from right to first. Gave Chappelle will start the Cubs 6th. Good friend Jeff Garlin, actor, producer, director, comedian.
Bon vivant.
Huge Cub fan. Chicago native. He will sing the stretch and chat with us on the top of the 7th.
That should be fun. Dave Chappelle played collegiately at Coastal Carolina University down in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And check out this kid here from Coastal, modern day. Check out this stance. Crazy?
Yeah. Well, I assume it works for him. What would make you even try that?
I have no idea. I mean, that's, Jeff Bagwell had that extreme crouch. You've seen some funky stuff, some wide open stances. That one, though, is off the charts.
See, Chappelle stands pretty tall in the box as he sends a fly ball out to Cowgill. One away.
On Tuesday, July 30th, the Cubs take on the Brewers at 7:05. All fans in the Budweiser bleachers will receive a Cubs Lucha Libre wrestling match as they enter the gates. For more information on to purchase your Budweiser bleacher tickets, visit Cubs.com. They're modeled by Len's right hand.
I would put it
Lucha
on, but
Libre.
mess up my hair.
Me too. That's exactly what I was
fit
thinking.
Over the headset. When's the giveaway day? Is it coming up this week?
I think that's at the 30th, I believe.
Oh,
is what I
okay.
heard.
Couple weeks.
It's going to be an interesting sight. Yeah, that's a bleacher thing.
Yeah. I've never been, to one of those wrestling events. I'd love to go. Deep right, but Cowgill will get it.
I remember there was in my hometown as a kid, kind of a small time circuit came through.
High school
at the
gym?
local arena, hockey arena in the summertime. People were taking little rubber stoppers off the end of their folding chairs and firing them at Indian Joe. It's not very nice at all.
They have Lucha Libre events in Chicago.
Yeah, the wrestling I went to wasn't Lucha Libre. It was just, I think, French Canadians mostly.
So looks at a strike. It's 1-1. You ever watch the old Santo movies? Not Ron Santo, but he was a wrestler back in the 70s.
No.
Yeah, seen a couple of those. I think he's kind of like a superhero. El Santo.
The Saint? Is that what that means?
Yeah, I assume
That's
so.
cool.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Called strike 3. All Angels tonight through 6, 11-1. Fan cam. I love it by Icona Pop. Cubs baseball brought to you by Budweiser, the official beer of Major League Baseball. Great times are waiting. Grab some buds. El Santo has joined us. Still dancing to music that only he can hear.
Let me just say, there's already one out. How long am I going to be up here?
How long you want to be up here?
Well, tonight I should stay the whole game. You guys are in trouble. That's all I'm saying to you. Not that my arrogance, I don't want to make it out like, but this is crazy. And I've never, by the way, as a Cub fan, and I can say just in person,
right,
never experienced anything like this before.
Like what?
Like having to wear a mask.
Oh, yeah. No,
because no one should know that I'm here. What happened? Here, give me the thing. I spilled.
That's okay.
You're good. We got the towel.
We got a towel. We're good, Jeff.
All right. I just want to make sure. I got a little excited in my wrestling outfit. So where did you get this? Who gave this to you?
That's the giveaway coming up in about 3 weeks. Here at Wrigley. If you sit in the bleachers, you get the Lucha Libre.
They're going to have... That is brilliant. Whoever in marketing thought of that, the idea of the bleachers filled with these is genius. Genius. Oh, my God. All right, I'm ready to wrestle the... by the way, I want to say right now officially, Angels fans are great. I just want to... The last time I was up here, I created some problems. Oh, he's upset he struck out. Too bad.
Are you going to sing with the mask?
C.J. Wilson.
Are you going to sing with the mask, Jeff?
It's up to you. I'll do whatever you want. Yes, of course.
Matter if you want to.
I'm singing with the mask. Why not? Who needs... Wait, I need to be... What, I want to get more well-known? No, thank you. I want people to come to my movie, but I don't want to be more... you know what I mean. How are you?
We'll talk about the movie after this.
Does this have an Astro kind of feeling to you?
Well, it's familiar.
Okay.
I've seen this before. The Do you remember opening day when we had the little event and John and I joined you briefly?
Yeah.
And I said to you, there would come a time when we'd beam the G into the night sky, and you would have to hop into your Garlin mobile and come save the sea. And there, we didn't even have to.
There, boom. Good night, everybody.
Intuitive. We didn't even have to beam the G.
Yes. Well, I'm planning on staying for the extra innings because the Cubs are next inning. Do you realize what's going to happen? 11 straight solo homers.
Wow.
Not even multi-hit things. 11. That would be a record. This is not the record for home runs against us, is it?
No.
What is the record?
I think it's 8. I remember
And what are we at now, 6 or 7?
5.
5. It feels like 8. But can I just say something for everyone?
Please do.
Man, I love the Cubs. That's all. Just want to get that across. I love the Cubs.
You do. It affects your daily life, doesn't it?
It certainly does. And thank God for Theo, because I believe in him and I believe in the direction we're heading. So, it's not as bad as it's been in years past. I'm seeing myself. This is disturbing on a lot of levels, but I'm enjoying it. And this is going to work here. I'm just going to watch the game like this, because I feel like that's the position you need to be in when you watch the game with a mask like this. I'm ready to. I remember.
Would you be a villain or more the heroic?
Well, it's
guy?
more fun to be a villain. Yeah. By the way, when I was a kid, I remember because they had at the Wilmette Theater, they had matinees on weekends for kids, and there was one weekend where there was like a secret agent wrestling guy who wore a mask like this, and he was a good guy, and I loved that movie, and I don't know the name of it, but I loved it, and it was at the Wilmette Theater. It's a fond memory, just like 100 home runs that hit against us. Oh, all right.
Maybe it was El Santo.
What's going on now? That's ball 4.
Ball 4.
Okay, because I thought, all right, never mind. Oh, dear God.
We'll plug the movie after the stretch.
We'll plug the movie after.
We'll do it after the stretch.
Oh, okay. Look at you and your good looks.
Back.
Okay, good. I'm here. It's the G in the sky.
You're a two-segment guy, Jeff.
I'm a two.
You are. You're a full inning guy.
As they say in Sweden, I love you.
That's what they say in Sweden.
By the way, my head is so gigantic that my nose doesn't even fit under. My nose comes out. Is it supposed to?
We get on laces if you need to.
I'm sure. Well, who else had it on? Anyone?
Okay. Somebody has to yours.
Okay. Oh, look at Paul Sullivan sitting over there. Hey, Paul Sullivan, you can't see me.
You're the test pilot, baby.
I'm the test. Yeah. But I'm telling you, the bleachers filled with this is the most brilliant marketing move of all time. I don't know who did it. The only thing that could top it is Ron Santos saying, Acapulco taco pie. That's number 1. Number 2, this. Ron, what's your favorite? Acapulco taco pie, before your time. Yeah.
Clearly.
Yeah, yes, clearly. But if you ever heard Ron Santos say Acapulco taco pie, you'd be a different man. I know I was. That was his favorite from Seattle, Sutton.
We're just back in Ronnie's hometown.
Oh, my gosh.
We were just back in Seattle a couple weeks ago.
I was there, too. I was filming a movie. I just played Keira Knightley's dad in a movie called Laggies. And here's what I want to tell you. I'm playing Keira Knightley's dad, and Steve Carell, same age as me, in a different movie, plays her lover. And I'm playing her dad. What does that tell you? It's not a good thing. But she's great. And,
it's fouled away. 2-2 on Trout, who's had a huge night.
That Keira Knightley was your offspring. That wasn't considered a stretch
by the way,
casting people.
By the way, they brought it up constantly. Everyone involved with the movie, except the director. I was her vision, Lynn Shelton. She wanted me to do that. So, hey, I think it's going to work. They grade my hair. So, you know.
Very nice.
And Keira, I think, took a liking to me.
You know, you're going to make history. You're going to be the first person to sing the stretch with a Lucha Libre mask on.
Well, Grandma,
right,
come on.
Here you go, Jeff.
Boom. Is this
Stretch
it?
time. Yep.
Okay.
I'll take this off.
Today's guest conductor for Take Me Out to the Ball Game, actor, comedian, and Chicago native, Jeff Garlin.
Hello, everybody. We, as Cub fans, we got to stick together on nights like this. So let me hear ya. A 1, a 2, a 3. Take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the crowd. me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I ever get back, for it's root for the Cubbies. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game. Yeah! All right, here's what I want. 11 solo homers. 11 solo homers. Come here, 11 solo homers. Thank you. In beautiful Wrigley Field. So gather your friends and your family and make baseball part of your plans. The Cubs' first home series after the All-Star break begins Monday, July 29th against the Brewers. To purchase tickets, visit Cubs.com.
Nicely done.
Thank you very much.
That mask was a little warm, huh? You
that
okay?
mask is good. By the way, is it a day game? I'm just curious because, no, it's a night game. Okay. Because day game and also the sunburn outlines that they would get. Oh, that would be hysterical. Oh, my God, that was hot. All right. At least I don't feel like fainting. All right.
11 solo homers.
That's what I'm going for. And Soriano's going to start it up right now. He's hot. He can do it.
The outside corner. All right, let's talk about your new film.
Yes.
Dealing with Idiots.
Dealing with Idiots, which is about youth baseball parents. I made a comedy about the parents. There's kids in it, but it's not about the kids. It's very much an adult movie. It's an R-rated kind of movie. And I'm premiering it here in Chicago this weekend at the Music Box Theater. Next week, New York and L.A.
All right.
Awesome.
Okay? It never works out that way, except when it's my movie.
This is your movie. You wrote it.
Yes.
You directed it.
Yes.
You star in it.
Yes. And the team that my son plays on, the Cubs.
Perfect.
The main team is, remember, in the poster, one of the characters is wearing a Cubs hat.
So you're one of the dads.
Yes, I'm one of the dads.
You
play a comedian, right?
I play a comedian. It's not a stretch what I did. And the movie's improvised. The whole movie's improvised. It's done like Curb Your Enthusiasm. Right. As a matter of fact, J.B. Smoove, who plays Uncle Leon on Curb Your Enthusiasm, he's in the movie. Bob Odenkirk, Fred Willard, just like all these great, funny people.
I'm in.
Oh, well, please. Please, my friend, next week. You got a little time. Yeah.
Dealing with Idiots.
Dealing with Idiots. That's exactly right. And let's go. Soriano, right now, I'm telling you. Watch. Solo homer. I was wrong on that pitch, but it's coming.
3-2. So what do you think the fans here, they knew you were singing and then they looked up and saw that?
I think that a good portion of them laughed. I think some were frightened. And then I think, oh, look at that. It's not
center.
quite what I thought. Oh, that's right. Mike Trout's plays center.
You got to hit it out to get it over him.
You got to hit it out to get it over him. I heard that Garza may be going for Trout. That's the new rumor. one for one. Garza for Trout.
Let's tweet that and get that out there.
By the way, I'm going to tonight.
Yeah, you're going to put that out there.
New Cup
was
rumor.
That Wrigley? I heard strong rumors.
Yeah, I passed by the Cubs honchos, and they mentioned that it was going to happen. Not if, but when.
Castro.
No.
Ups into right.
This is just all a big ball. And by the way, I have an. Oh, wait, the poster for the movies, right? Where is it?
Let's see it.
Oh, there it is. And that's J.B. Smooth's character wearing a Cubs hat in front. Yeah. So, but it opens this weekend. I'll be there Friday and Saturday night. Introducing
is that
the
you
movie.
with the?
Yes, screaming in the middle, like, oh my God, help me. I really have fun with it.
Now, are you the kind of the dad who gets it, or are you one of the screaming idiot dads?
I don't want to give up anything. Okay, but let's just say the answer to both your questions is yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. No, there's some great idiots in the movie.
Hey, can I give a quick plug for a film that you were in right at the very beginning, and that was it.
Was it?
But it was one of my favorite films the last couple of years. Safety Not Guaranteed.
Oh,
nice little film.
yeah. When I
you
played
played the dad again.
I played
right?
Aubrey Plaza's son.
Yes.
And I actually filmed that one in Seattle too. But the Cubs weren't in town. Thank you. That is a wonderful movie.
And I didn't know you were in it until I saw it.
There I was.
It's got to be good if Jeff's in it.
That's what people say. Daddy Kate Daycare proved that. And then what was one that I was in with Gerard Butler and Jennifer Aniston? It was just horrible. I don't remember.
You know you're a superstar when you can't even remember certain films' titles that
you understand that I don't see most movies I'm in unless I make them. Like I made this one, so I was editing it with my editor. So, and by the way, it's also going to be available on pay-per-view and iTunes as of this Friday too. Look! No, this is my inexperience. Now it's over.
Dealing with idiots. That's what Jeff's been doing the last inning.
No, dealing with gentlemen who've got a tough gig ahead of them. And
Can't
it's
wait
an honor.
to see it.
I tell you what an honor it is every time I'm up here.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, fellas, and I'll see you soon.
Is going to play left for Alfonso Soriano.
Well, that was fun.
Jeff's always fun.
As trying to picture Luis in the outfield. Been out there this year?
No, I think it's the first time this year, at least. Colin Cowgill is going to make the turn and head for 3, and he will get in. Slides, didn't need to, though. That's a leadoff triple. First 3-base hit of his career. Now Hamilton. It's a ground ball to Rizzo, and that'll score a run to make it 12-1. For Hamilton, that's his 5th RBI of the game. Let's see, Luis Valbuena has played 13 1/3 innings in the outfield in his career. First time as a Cub he's been out there. I guess if you're going to put a guy out there just to see how he responds, you might as well do it on a night like this.
Give Soriano a little time off in a blowout game. First run Rayleigh has allowed tonight. He's done a pretty good job since coming into the ball game.
Dane De La Rosa up in the Angels bullpen. So we did not plan for Jeff to wear the Lucha Libre mask. We just happened to do that bit the half inning before he came in. And I guess in all honesty, we thought, well, why don't we just leave it on the desk and see if he bites.
He was going to run with it. Yeah.
And it's a first.
Give a comedian a prop.
What is this? Ball 4. Second walk issued by Brooks Raley.
I just wish he'd be a little more enthusiastic.
Yeah. Here's Trumbo, started the game in right. He homered in the first inning, 1 for 4. He's now playing first. Fastball is low. Raley from Uvalde, Texas, 90 minutes west of San Antonio. Ever been to Uvalde?
He may have been through Uvalde.
You mentioned he was an Aggie. Texas A&M, 6th rounder back in 09.
Gig him. The sinker here.
Fouled out of play.
Yu Darvish to the DL.
Ground ball to third. Try to go around the horn. And they do. 5-4-3 double play. The Angels get 1. It's now 12-1. Find out what's possible with products and services from AT&T. Rethink possible. Baseball brought to you by Bud Light Music First. It's the sound of history being made. Here we go. Honda. Visit your local Honda dealer or go to shophonda.com for current offers. And by AT&T. Find out what's possible with products and services from AT&T. Rethink possible. Whole new outfield. We'll start in right. Brad Hopp is out there. J.B. Shuck over in left. Cowgill goes from right to center. I'm having flashbacks of about March 25th right now. Dane De La Rosa is the pitcher. C.J. Wilson was tremendous tonight. 7 innings, 1 run, 4 hits, 6 strikeouts, no walks. That's a key when you have a big early lead.
Yeah, this game settled fairly early on. You know, the Angels scored 5 in the top half of the first. C.J. Wilson took command of the Cubs lineup. First three innings, they had just the 1 hit. The Pujols home run, they made it 7-1. That's when you kind of figured comeback was really unlikely, if not impossible. This is a big guy here. De La Rosa, 6'7", 245.
Bounce back to the pitcher. He dropped it, but lots of time to get Castillo for the out.
De La Rosa originally signed with the Yankees. Been drafted by the Rangers in 2001. Turned that down. 24th round pick of the Yankees the next year. Pitched for the Yankees a little bit in the low minor leagues. And then he spent 3 years in independent ball. It's been a long climb for him to get to the big leagues.
.95 and a strike on Bourbon. Well, you see the stuff and you say, how did it take him so long?
Cup of coffee with the Rays in 11. Same again last year. This is his first significant time in a big league uniform. What he's doing here with the Angels.
Mark Sapelsa, Micah Mater, Tom Skilling, and Rich King are standing by with the WGN News following our broadcast. One and 2 on Bourbon. Here it is. 2-2.
Bottom of the 8th on a night like tonight. Good time to turn our attention to tomorrow, and it's Edwin Jackson for the Cubs against right-hander Jake Westbrook for St. Louis. Westbrook's 5-3 with a 278. 4-game series with the Cardinals. We'll see all their starters except for Shelby Miller. He pitched tonight against the Astros.
Bourbon strikes out.
Westbrook, Kelly, Lynn, Wainwright against Jackson, Villanueva, Garza, and Wood.
They're texting each other.
Trying to buy tickets for Lucha Libre night.
Raley with his second at bat, grounded to short in the 5th. What a relief pitcher getting 2 at bats in a game that's not an extra innings.
Yeah, that doesn't happen very often, does it?
High, it's 3-0. Three and one. Ground ball this time to third. Callaspo makes a play. De La Rosa with a 1-2-3 inning. The Cubs' last hit came back in the 5th. It's 12-1 Angels. To look at our Budweiser player of the game. A lot of options tonight. We're going to go with Josh Hamilton. 2 home runs, 5 RBIs. Honorable mentions would be C.J. Wilson, 7 innings, 1 run. Trout, Pujols, big nights tonight as well. Cubs baseball brought to you by Budweiser, the official beer of Major League Baseball. Great times are waiting. Grab some Buds.
I'd have been tempted to give it to Jeff Garlin with his performance tonight. I guess we'll give it to the guy who hit 2 home runs. Numbers 13 and 14 for Hamilton, who came into this little 2-game series really swinging it well. He took an 0 for last night, but a little revenge here this evening.
There's Hank Conger taking a strike. Brooks Raley saving the bullpen tonight. If he finishes his 9th inning, it would be 4 1/3 innings. Might force the Cubs to make another roster move because he might not be available again the rest of the weekend. That 4-game series against the Cardinals.
That would be ironic, wouldn't it? Normally you think you'd have to pitch poorly to pitch your way off the ball club.
Ball 4. They came all the way across the country to see their Angels. Want to know on Harris. He had a 2-run homer off Henry Rodriguez back in the 5th. Door breaking ball on the corner.
Last night the Cubs hit 5 home runs. The Angels managed just 6 hits in the game. Tonight the Angels with 5 home runs. The Cubs with only 4 hits. The Angels have more home runs than the Cubs have hits tonight.
In the hole, Castro gets the out at second, and that's all.
Foot slipped on him a little bit. Don't think it really influenced the play a whole lot.
J.B. Shuck. First and probably only at bat of the series. Jack Burdette Shuck the third.
He was up with the Astros a little bit when I was over there. He's a good patient hitter. Throughout his minor league career, hit for a high average, had a high on base percentage.
Former Buckeye, 6th round pick of the Astros out of the Ohio State in 2008. 1-1. That's a strike. Pulled fair. Harris will be stopped at third. It's a double for Shuck.
Everybody's hitting for the Angels tonight. Shuck's only at bat of the night. He yanks one into the corner for extra bases.
It's their fifth double. They have a triple. They have 5 homers. So that's 11 extra base hits. Well, you talked about it. Just the reverse last night. Some days you're the dog, other days you're the hydrant, right? It's the way this game works.
Some days you're the windshield, some days you're the bug. Statue pigeon.
Even with a loss tonight, the Cubs still, with a winning record against the American League, 13-7, assuming they don't come back. First winning season in interleague action since '07. Swept the White Sox, never trailed in any of the 4 games they played. Ended up splitting the season series with the Angels. Beat the Rangers 2 out of 3. Did the same with Seattle. Lost 2 of 3 in Oakland. Fly ball by Ibar. This will get a run in. Both runners tagging. Harris scores. Sac fly for Ibar. 13-1. Now ties the most runs the Cubs have allowed this season. They gave up 13 against San Diego back on April 30th. Brad Hopp. He struck out in a big spot last night against Matt Guerrier. Bases loaded in the 7th.
People around the league will look at this score and think, man, the wind must have been howling. It must have been blowing out at Wrigley for the Angels to do all the damage they did. That has not been the case.
Two and two. Once again, the WGN News coming up right after the ball game. We saw Mark Sapelsa after the 9 o'clock show down on the south side Monday night. He's not here. He's at the studio, I think. I would assume. So he gets there really fast. We go to the bottom of the 9th. 13-1 Angels. We're back with you on WGN Sports, 3 o'clock Central Time on Friday afternoon. Right-hander Joe Kelly against righty Carlos Villanueva right here on WGN. 2 of a 4-game weekend series that'll take both teams into the All-Star break. Here's right-hander Billy Buckner.
No relation. 1-0, 345. 5 games. A couple of those were starts.
You're not related?
No, I'm not.
And neither is the other Bill Buckner. Okay, just clarifying. Two and 1 to Chappelle. Well, you said it. The Cubs have had little going offensively tonight. They had the 1 inning, the 4th. They had back-to-back hits to start the frame off C.J. Wilson, but that's really it.
Yeah, you know, once they had that second big inning, that just kind of takes the steam out of everybody, and the quality of the at-bats tends to suffer a little bit. And understandably, the concentration might not be quite as keen. Plus, C.J. Wilson was really, really good.
Swing and a miss, strike 3. Here's Ransom. Scored the only Cubs run in the 4th.
He hit a leadoff double, and Rizzo brought him home with a single.
It's a strike. It's a good look. I like it. Don't touch.
Uh-oh. Might be gone for good. Nope, she recovered it. Don't put that back in your mouth, young lady.
Driven deep left center. Cody Ransom goes yard. That's his 9th of the year, and that Cub fan happy stuck around.
Well, there you go, Jeff. There's one solo home run. Oh, what a nice job Cody Ransom has done.
Cody.
Tap back to Buckner. This will be out number 2. Be up to Luis Valbuena, his first at bat tonight. Got a lot of reaction on Twitter. A lot of love for the Lucha Libre masks. Well, you got to come out, sit in the bleachers coming up. This will be handed out. Was it July 30th? Did we
I
say?
believe so. Yeah.
Driven deep, but it will be caught to end the ball game as the Angels earn the split. The final score tonight, the Angels 13, the Cubs 2. We'll be back in a moment.